it seems to me that there is some really, really bad stuff going on in the world that nobody is talking about. So ISIS, which is the Islamic State in Syria, they're also known as ISIL, which is the Islamic State in the Levant, and now they're just being called IS, Islamic State. They have been going on a rampage, basically through Iraq. Iraq really is no longer a country in any way that we think countries operate. Syria, of course, is in the worst civil war going on in the world right now, and about 170,000 people have been killed. So we're going to show you an extremely, extremely graphic video. So there's your warning. This is horrible what we're about to show you, but I'm bringing this up because nobody's talking about this. And I'm shocked, and I really don't understand why. So again, warning, this is extremely graphic.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعز جنده وأنجز وعده وهزم الأحزاب وحده إخوانكم جنود الدولة الإسلامية أتمنى الله عليه بفضل من عنده ونصر أن فتح عليهم الفرقة 17 بنصر من الله ومنا نبرأ إلى الله من حولنا وقوتنا ونبرأ إلى الله من عدتنا وعتادنا فاليوم وإلى قيام الساعة لا حول لنا ولا قوة طواغيت قد أذن الله عز وجل بأن تهزم وأن تعلق في هذا المكان نسأل الله عز وجل أن يتمم هذا النصر والتمكين لإخوانكم في الدولة الإسلامية.
So what you're seeing there, the beheadings are of Syrian soldiers loyal to Bashar al-Assad, done by ISIS. Now, of course, it's hard to tell who the good guys are and hard to tell who the bad guys are, which is part of the problem, and I suspect that's partly why the media isn't talking about this, because we like really obvious things, or seemingly obvious things. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says at least 85 government soldiers loyal to Assad died there. Right now, as we tape this, there is an ethnic group in Iraq called the Yazidi. They are trapped, about 50,000 of them are trapped in the mountains of Iraq, surrounded on all sides by ISIS. They are literally starving to death. Nobody's talking about it, and nobody's doing anything. I don't know what we should do, but it seems like we should at least be talking about it. So let's talk about that. Why is nobody talking about this? I get what's going on in Israel and Gaza. Terrible. I get it. But why are we seemingly unable to discuss two things at once?
Because we're so busy talking about the Ebola virus that we're not talking about this. I honestly don't know why people aren't talking about this. I mean, at this point in time, they now run 1/3 of Iraq. That is a large percentage of the country, and they're now going into Lebanon and Turkey, and they're, this is
yesterday. They went into Lebanon yesterday.
This is a crisis, and nobody's talking about it. And I honestly don't know why.
Yeah, is this kind of the perfect, what this seems to me is that this is the perfect storm of George W. Bush fucked up everything by creating a war in Iraq that we shouldn't have had.
Yes.
And then sort of
Al-Qaeda started.
Yeah, and then Obama was sort of the perfect president of disengagement. That's what he said from beat one.
He didn't do the best job of that.
Well, no, I mean perfect in if you wanted a perfect storm of sort of terrible things to happen. I don't think it was his intent, but when he gave that big speech in Cairo, he sort of said, we're going to pull back and let you guys do stuff, and that's fine. But it's sort of the perfect storm of two presidents doing completely different things in a row to allow all this to happen.
Well, I think, I mean, even more than that, there's an issue trying to force a governmental structure on a people who aren't interested or willing to receive it. Fundamentally, that's a problem. But beyond that, I think, going back to your original question, why is nobody paying attention to this? My cynical answer would be that neither of these groups are our allies.
Yeah.
And because neither of these groups are allies, we have no political reason to talk about this human rights crisis, and that's detrimental to, I think, our understanding. I mean, I am embarrassed to say that I'm sitting here and I know very little about the geopolitical conflicts that are happening in these areas, and that's mostly because I haven't done my due diligence, but also because it's not there. You have to really dig for this. And when you talk about, we know what's going on in Israel with the West Bank, with Gaza, we know that because Israel is a huge political ally of the American government. And you're not going to see any kind of political figures in America speaking up for Gazans, for Palestinians. You're not, and I mean, what you believe about that, what you don't believe about that, it's a very tricky situation. Yeah. It's pretty obvious where the allegiance of America lies in that scenario. In this scenario, what is it going to be with? Bashar? Is it going to be, I mean, like...
Right, like we sort of think it should be with the government in Iraq that we built, but we don't seem to be doing much for that.
And also, I think when something becomes so incredibly destabilized, how much is kind of putting all of your stock into a government that's losing control going to end up kind of cashing out in the long run?
Yeah.
And that's really, unfortunately, the way that the American government looks at these situations. They're strategic, individual people are head counts, and no fucking horrible pun intended here. But I think more than the political and more than the war that's happening there, what nobody's talking about is the fact that like people are dying in a very kind of
savage,
draconian way.
So is that then part of it, that this is so savage that partly, you know what I mean? Everyone keeps saying the images out of Gaza are horrible, which they are, but there's a definitive narrative. It's a bomb that drops on something.
It's a war that we recognize.
Yes.
And that's how we've seen war.
Yeah.
This is not that. This is savage. This is like...
It's like medieval.
Yeah, it is. It's medieval. It's something you would see on Game of Thrones. You have seen on Game of Thrones. Like, this is something we don't understand. Maybe that's another reason people aren't talking about it. It's like, how do you begin to talk about this? Where does this mentality come from?
Yeah.
How does somebody? Al-Qaeda has disavowed this group because of their behavior, because it's so savage. So like, how does someone become the person that beheads another human being and puts it on display for everyone to see? And why aren't we doing anything about it? I mean, it's a massacre.
Yeah.
Rwanda happened, other things have happened where there's been massacres, and yes, we waited and waited and waited, or we did not do anything about it, and maybe that was political, because there was no political, there was no incentive.
There's no currency for it.
There's no currency, right. Now, look, there is a lot of oil at play, obviously,
Isn't there oil there?
especially in Iraq. I don't know what we're supposed to do, but this thing right now with the Yazidi in the mountains, they're literally dying of starvation.
Women and children,
This is an ethnic group that's existed in Iraq for thousands of years.
Yes.
I guess we could have some airstrikes on the ISIS soldiers that are around the mountains. You know what I mean? I'm not calling for more military intervention, but like, is there something we could do that wouldn't risk any American lives? Yeah, probably.
Or just, simple humanitarian aid. And I know that there's going to be pushback, that it's really hard to deliver humanitarian aid when there's military intervention on the other side, right? What you try to do. We've seen this happen all the time, or we've seen this happen historically in Africa, where we try to deliver humanitarian aid. Warlords will pick up the meal packages, whatever we're delivering, keep them from the people. The warlords are getting richer. It's complicated as fuck.
Yeah.
I think.
well said.
Yeah, I think this is my professional opinion. There's something to be said about a group of people that seems like they're behind the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mentality that's hard for us to sit with. Like, we should be past this.
Right. Yeah.
Like, we're more modern than this. And when you see a group of people...
Well, the rest of the world, it seems, is more modern than this.
Exactly. The rest of the world is more modern. This group is so behind, is so ass backward, that it's, like you were saying, there's such a disconnect. How do you even begin to intervene? Because the arguments that you make, the diplomacy that you try to do doesn't translate. And that becomes a huge sticking point. I think that's where the real difficulty lies.
So final thought, is there anything that we should be doing, do you think?
I mean,
we're just letting it go to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah,
Is there anything?
I don't know. For me, I feel like, there's 50,000 people that are up on a hill now running away from these people. And I feel like at any point in time, I know it's complicated, but I feel like we're the United States. We can do anything we want to do. And, these people are just going to die if somebody doesn't help them. Yeah. And we've gone into their countries and we've, created havoc, and we haven't stabilized anything, as we can see, and then we just left. Okay, well, now we're just going to leave, and we're going to leave you to pick up the pieces of this shit.
And that's
a huge problem.
That also goes to what I meant about the Bush-Obama thing.
Yeah, do we have a responsibility here?
We fucked it up so terribly. So do we have a responsibility, even if we don't want to, and we believe in the idea of disengaging? If we're the ones that screwed it up, do we at least 50,000 people on a mountain?
Drop some fucking MREs into the town,
Yes.
It's like, help the people
do something.
Do something.
I don't know. I don't go into someone's house and make a mess and then be like, all right, I'm going to go home now and leave your kitchen in disarray. Like, I help someone clean up their kitchen and then I leave. But then again, I was raised with manners.
Unlike ISIS. Okay.